Hi there, Greg Braun here, Senior Researcher at REA Group. Really wanted to bring to you my presentation on commercial consumer insights to you, and it was really about 3 trends affecting commercial consumers right now. Unfortunately, COVID-19 has laid other plans for us, so instead what we've done is put that content available to you on our website for free, and you can access that now. I really hope you do, and I really hope you take that back to your teams to share. But for now, stay safe and hope to see you all soon. Thanks very much.
So I've been busy. I have been, me and my team, I'm not going to take all the credit. We've been busy running some insight pieces with commercial agents. And the reason we do that is because they're a complex beast, and we kind of need to know what they're thinking, feeling, and doing when it comes to commercial property. So a great way of doing that is basically asking thousands what they think and hoping for the best and seeing what comes out. But more than that, we actually then have to kind of translate that into trends, because it's easier to kind of understand a trend, where it's coming from and how it relates to commercial property. So that's what we've done here. This is just the nerdery. Let's get that out of the way. We spoke to 700, we ended up speaking to 700 commercial commercial consumers. This was after they'd sent an inquiry from our website. So what happens often then is that we lose track of them. So we need to kind of go, well, how was the experience with the agents after you left our site? So that's what we've done here. Most of them were business decision makers. So we know we're talking to the right people, so what they're saying is very important. About 29% were actually investors as well. So just to give you a sense of who's in this sample and what I'm about to share with you. And we've got an even split roughly between buy and sell. Cool. So what we've done with this information that we got back is use this, but also overlay it with kind of global trends that we're seeing in consumer behavior, local trends as well, what's going on in Australia, and kind of package this up into a way that I think is really telling us about 3 key things that are happening right now. First one is that we're seeing commercial consumers are increasingly demanding. We all in this room are becoming more demanding as consumers, and that's playing out in every sector. Number 2 is that they're losing their voice. We see that communication preferences are changing massively. And that's no different for when people are buying a car, a fridge, to commercial property. It's all the same. We're impacted in the same way. Third one is that we're powered by humans. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. So I'm going to spend the next 25 or so minutes rattling through these, and let's see where we get to. Cool. So the first one is they're demanding. What do we mean by this? Google's already telling us this. Some search behavior that I've looked at actually tells us that we're changing the way we search for things, and it's actually giving away how impatient we're all becoming. Probably the most interesting one is how we're searching for things. So coffee near me is a great example. We've probably all used that in the last week or two. 650% increase in people that are saying coffee near me in the last couple of years, in the years that's shown. Now, near me isn't just tell me the location, tell me where it is relative to where I am now. It's actually talking about where is it in relation to me, yes, but also does it have what I want? Is it open now? So it's loaded with all these extra things that we're asking for in one simple Google search, which is near me. Same-day delivery is another great example. We never used to look at that 5 years ago. Same-day delivery, it wasn't a thing that was even an option, but now we're seeing an increase in people searching for that. Probably within the ASOS same-day delivery. Returns as well, it's all the same thing. These are all good proxies for how we're changing the way we think. How does this relate to property? This is probably one of my favorite slides. We ask simply a question about response to an inquiry. So you sent an inquiry from our site as a consumer. Did you get a response? Yes. How long did that response take and how satisfied were you? So we can see here, I might even get this out. Woo. We've got these 4 data points here where people are basically saying they're kind of 8 out of 10. They're pretty happy with this. But what we can see is when we hit about 24 hours where that response didn't come in, that's when the satisfaction really starts to drop off, which is really interesting. We've explored this a little bit more in the residential side of things, and what we're actually seeing there is that shift towards the left-hand side. So we're getting that sweet spot, if you like, that is currently around 24 hours, is actually shifting and getting less and less because we're all becoming more demanding. Why is this happening? Brands, of course, are setting the pace. This doesn't often generate kind of in the property world. It's probably retail and other consumer brands that are kind of setting us up for this expectation because they tend to be there first. They're very much setting the pace. This is a company who has kind of cottoned on to the trend of that they don't, we buy clothes, but we don't necessarily want to keep them for very long. Trends come in, fashions come in and out, or it might just be seasonal. So we can actually send things back and get a new set of for our wardrobe for the next season. So they're tapping into that because our demands and what we want from experiences are changing. This is a company called Rialto. Rialto's they almost solve the problem of when you go on holiday and you want that one good coffee, because back home you know where to get it, particularly in Melbourne. But when you go away, where do I get my first good coffee from? Because I need it, right? Rialto is, if you've already ordered at a Rialto branch, the robot will remember your order. So when you go to Singapore or somewhere where there's another one, you can actually just get your exact order made for you by by a different robot, but it remembers who you are and what you like. It's pretty phenomenal. And then Wing, which is a Google Alphabet company. They are, this is not a kind of a future dream of what's going to be. This is happening right now in Canberra. They got their license to deliver things by drone. So it's simple things right now, like coffee beans and sugar and stuff like that. But if something can deliver something you want in 1 hour, why is it taking more than 24 hours to get a response to an inquiry? Your expectations have changed. And we see this as well. So this is not me trying to preach to you guys. We're essentially a service provider at REA as well. And we see this in our own world. So our world is dominated by, from a consumer perspective, the website. It's one of our biggest assets. And so we do a lot of work around making that site as good as it can be. So every 6 months, we go out to thousands of customers and we say, hey, do you like our site? What's good about it? What's bad about it? And the bad stuff's often the most revealing and the things that we want to change. So what we do then is go, cool, we have a list of things that we can then go and fix. We make those changes, and when we come back 6 months later and retest the score, we expect it to all go up because we're all optimistic. What we actually find is that nothing's really changed, because what we've seen is that our consumer expectations have changed with it. So in that 6 months, we've made all these fixes, it's great, but they've had another experience somewhere else, or they've had a drone drop of coffee and they're going, well, what I expect is so much different to what I used to expect 6 months ago. So we might not see the changes we want. So it's an evolution, it's an arms race continually to kind of keep things improved and keep up with expectation. For the most part, agents have actually been getting it right in this space, which is awesome. So 82% of consumers expect a response within about that 24-hour period. Not everyone's as fussy, but 82 is pretty decent. 73% of agents, 73% of agents are responding in that time frame. So it feels like that time frame is great. But as I say, we're actually seeing it move to the left. We're seeing it quicken up, so that expectation is continually changing. But here's the thing. I think we're forgetting some real basics here. What I've been talking to you about is all of the inquiries that have received a response, which is great. But we're seeing that 21% of people, consumers, to an inquiry made last year on our site of a sample, did not receive a response to their inquiry. Now, if you actually extrapolate that out, across the whole organization. It's something like 1 million inquiries that are going unanswered. So sometimes all you need to do is just answer the inquiry to go top of the list from a consumer perspective. We hear a fair amount on the road that, well, it was a dodgy email, we didn't like it, didn't like the look of it, or the message was brief and somewhat sharp and maybe a bit rude, or just give me the information, just a bit demanding, as we're all becoming. And I accept that that is the case sometimes. Some people can just be, give me this, I need this. But that's kind of the human nature and the situation that we're in. But what we've also done is just kind of profile some of those people that were being missed, so slipping through the net. We've actually seen like 1 in 4 claim to be hot leads. And by that, they're far into their journey, they're ready to make the next step, their fingers pretty much on the button and ready to press it. And 1 in 5 say they're investors. So from an intent perspective, we feel that actually it's not just the time wasters that are kind of slipping through the net. Some, kind of the more serious buyers are in there as well. Non-response has huge negative business implications, and I can't stress this enough. Agency consideration, 70% are likely to consider you in the future where that non-response occurs. 1 in 4 give a negative recommendation, and 3 in 4, 3/4, no recommendation whatsoever. No recommendation is probably a missed opportunity. The negative recommendation can really hurt a business. Word of mouth, positive or negative, is the most compelling, I guess, thing that we tune into as people. So if you're buying anything and a number of people have told you that they recommend that thing you're about to buy, you'll listen to that. It's the most, it carries the most weight. Another example of consumer demand is what we're seeing on our site is this idea of outdated listings. I like to call them phantom listings, in that they're kind of there, but they don't really exist. So we just put this to the test. We're seeing that 28% of our consumers in this survey have experienced a time when they phoned up, genuinely interested in a property, but only to find out that it probably should have been moved to a different section because it's no longer available for buy or for rent. This doesn't make people very happy. 61% have, when they've experienced that, annoyed or frustrated. 20% actually distrust the agent or the agency that it belongs to. Huge amounts of negativity there creeping in. And I'll let you make your own mind up about one of those words, but there's just some quotes from our lovely consumers about it. It's genuine sentiment here, genuine frustration that comes through. Fishing for customers, they redirect you to other listings. They do this all the time. I try to avoid agents that do this. So this demand, this expectation that they have in their heads, if it's not met, it has negative business consequences. Again, 21% avoid the agency, 10% avoid the agent. And actually, we get caught up in this as well, in that 20% use alternatives to real commercial. So you're actually seeing people physically move away from the site. Number 2, losing their voice. The thing is, in this country and globally, we're hanging up on using the phone for its original purpose, which is telephone calls. 29% is the global average for using a phone for phone calls in the last 7 days. There's always the nerdery caveats that I've got to put around these things, but we appreciate it. Who thinks Australia's higher than that? Who thinks lower? For those who went lower, it is. It's 27%. 27% have used the phone to make a phone call in the last 7 days. Now, that's going to hurt, right? Because this is how you live and breathe. This is what you spend your time doing, making phone calls, trying to get people on the phone, just trying to get information out of them. But what we're seeing is that people don't want to work this way, or they're moving away from it. Now, when people want things, buy, sell, lease, yes, they're more likely to. But fundamentally, this ship has sailed. We're moving away from this type of communication. It's not what we want to do. So if you think about our site, and then if you think about how the inquiry form comes through to you, of course you want the phone number. But consumers don't want to give it. And this is the tension that we have. And they don't want to give it for lots of reasons, but they don't want to give it because they know there's other ways to do this stuff, to communicate. Norway and South Korea have pretty much given up on this. UK and Japan are still going, but this was 2 or 3 years ago now, so we're actually seeing this move back. There are new rules of engagement now happening. We're talking without speaking. We IM, we use WhatsApp, we use WeChat, we use all these other platforms that get our message across equally as well as the telephone, or in a way that we are completely happy with. What's possible through devices is changing. In Asia, WeChat is being used a lot now for everything, from booking a karaoke booth to actually ordering and storing your government documentation. Think about that a few years ago, storing government documentation on your phone in a way that you're happy with, secure with. It's very normal. And then also the anxiety that we have when the phone rings. We've all felt it. No one wants to pick up that thing and deal with it, really. And voicemail's the same. Leaving a number right now is pretty much on a toss of a coin. There's a whole bunch that do. It's not the end of the world. They still will. But there's a whole bunch that are kind of sitting on the fence. It depends, or they definitely won't at this stage in their journey. And yes, we see splits between kind of older, younger. That's very clear. Younger are more likely to, or less likely to say they always do, versus the older generation who are still kind of clinging on to this. It's something that they get, they do, and that's fine. But this is the one. They're just not ready to leave that number. They don't need to. They're actually happy as consumers to get the information they need and then actually just do what they need to do with it before they reach out to an agent. So it's just preferring other email channels, so they just don't need that phone call right now. They're squirreling that information away, doing what they need to, and then coming out and contacting you. And the other one is privacy. There are some security kind of issues around that. Personally, I think that's slightly overstated. It's really about where they are in their journey and where their head's at. Okay, number 3, powered by humans. It's amazing. That is kind of AI at the moment. That is where it's at right now. And I think it's really interesting because, I don't know about you, I pick up the paper, I read online, I see so many headlines like this that are kind of AI is going to bring doom and gloom on the world and us and all of our professions, and we're going to be out of jobs. And it's going to bring Armageddon. We have a psychopathic AI, Norman Bates type style. This isn't, I don't think, a fair reflection of where we are right now. There is more balance in the world. AI will create far more jobs than it replaces. It'll be a vital tool in making the global economy more sustainable and efficient. And I think that's probably where we are right now, in reality. So let's try to move away from AI, thinking AI is actually a kind of a doom-mongering tool, to something that's going to help reinforce what we're good at. Because right now, I think what we're seeing and what we're hearing from consumers is they want personalized human responses. We don't really have an AI measure right now because it's not really in a place in our worlds, in our professions, where we can kind of stand back and look at it and see how it's operating. So what we've done here is actually kind of use a proxy. Just using personalized responses as that proxy to an inquiry versus an automation of that response. So someone's taken the time to respond to all the points of the inquiry that's come through versus something that's been set up to kind of generically respond that may or may not hit the mark. And just simply looking at the two, that where you have a personalized response, the satisfaction is so much higher right now. And importantly, it's answering the inquiry till it's full. Versus that automated where it's 11% are actually responding in a satisfactory manner. and 17% thought it was well answered as well. So we're seeing a huge difference between those two mechanisms. Obvious takeout is, automation isn't quite hitting the mark. That personalized response is something that people really want and really value. And it's not surprising given confidence in this sector in commercial property is so low right now. Every year we ask the same question among our consumers. How do you feel about the consumer journey you're about to go on? How do you feel about the market? There's two questions. This first one is astonishing because we come back, we hear the same thing year in, year out. That we're about 5.8 in this case. Now, if I asked you how good you were at, say, driving, I don't think anyone would say 5.8 or 5 or 6. I think you'd hover around 7, 8 on a good day, but you'd never go down that end of the scale. And I think that's kind of where we are. But when you're thinking about confidence in the property journey, the thing that we are responsible for helping them go on, this doesn't feel like a good place to be. 20% on the end there, anxious. Actual anxiety to going on this journey. I think we have a responsibility to fix these numbers, to increase the big one in the middle and reduce the one on the end. Slight tangent, but there's a guy, this guy, looks like he's out hunting, but he's an academic. His name's Paul Ekman. He spent 40 years of his life, most of it, trying to decipher or work out if there was a set of universal emotions that we all kind of agree to globally, or we can all recognize globally. And what he found was really interesting. In that, he said that there are 6 universal emotions that we all get. And it's things like happiness, surprise, sadness, contempt, disgust, and fear. And all of these things, all of those emotions make us do something. So if it's fear, we run. If it's happiness, we laugh. And it's really interesting because what happened how that has been applied to marketing in the last couple of years has kind of changed the way we think about stuff. Okay, so I was looking at you when you were looking at that, and I saw smiles, I saw head nodding, I saw a look of familiarity on your faces. Nostalgia, most of you've seen that before, you know what it is. Cadbury Gorilla advert, as it's well affectionately known as. The reason that is interesting is kind of what I was saying before, in that marketing used to be all about rational messaging. It used to be about telling me something, buy this toothpaste, it will make your teeth white and more attractive, probably. This advert went out about 10 years ago. It had no messaging about the product until the end, what you see there. It was a 90-second advert. It went out to market. The director internally almost got fired because it broke all of these rules. It's a gorilla, it's Phil Collins, it's purple, it's nothing to do with chocolate, too much, until the last 5 seconds. What we actually saw, and it's very hard to ever definitely say this when you launch a product and launch some advertising around it, but what we saw is a massive correlation between this advert going out and Cadbury sales of this chocolate, which is amazing. It broke the rules of rational advertising. It introduced this idea of emotion. And what I was saying before is that when you can actually kind of make people feel the right emotions, you're going to actually see them do the thing you want them to do. So in real estate, in commercial property, when we have all of that anxiety that we've already seen, and that lack of confidence, these are not good things. These are not things that people want to be holding on to. They're things that we, as a service provider in the real estate industry, you as agents, need to kind of think about and respond to, because that's the moment you're gonna create cut through and turn that kind of anxiety into a positive emotion. And just to round this out, it looks like a very simple set of ideas that I'm about to show. It's actually some complex or clever analysis that sits behind it. But what we actually did is just look at that response hierarchy. So we're thinking about how do you best respond within that 24-hour period. So we have essentially three ways. So the gold standard, Automated response followed by a personalized response within 24 hours. What we're seeing here, and what's actually different from residential, which is super interesting, is that automated response can sometimes be helpful if it's a holding response, telling you, or telling the person, that a full response is coming. People respond well to that. Silver is actually a personalized response within 24 hours, and gold, a personalized response after 24 hours, but as soon as possible, and fully answers the question. So that's that's the framework, I guess, that you can be thinking about when dealing with inquiries. But I think what's most important is they do all get a response, because that 1 in 5 slipping through the net is not a good place to be either. So just to wrap up, we spoke about, the first term was about consumers becoming more demanding. We see that shopping habits are changing, and what that actually does is make them think differently about how the service they're getting in the real estate is affecting them, and whether it's comparable to services and experiences that they've had elsewhere. So customer service should not be a department, it should be the entire company. Losing their voice, we spoke about, well, I should just change my voicemail greeting to please hang up and text me. We've seen that people are moving away from the telephone. They're moving to different ways of communicating, and they're happy with that. We have permission to do this. No one's going to answer the phone unless they want to. Powered by humans. Instead of using technology to automate processes, think about using the technology to enhance the human interaction. We've seen that there's lots of noise out there about AI. It is a phenomenal thing, or it will be, when we can all kind of access it in a mass way and make it work for us. But at the moment, what we're seeing is consumers really value humans. Humans that can help them on their journey, particularly when we're seeing that they're so lacking in confidence about the thing they're going on to do, and that heightening anxiety that we're seeing them have. AI will be amazing, but it will free us up to do the thing that we are so good at doing, which is being human. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.